back with another conversation with Steve Lindsay from ZipDeal. And we're diving in once again on all the things that you really want to know about why ZipDeal is a necessity for dealers. We're going to highlight the unique position of someone who is both a dealer operator and a technology provider. And Steve, I want to start with, for people that don't really understand what pre-delivery system means or what it entails, can you explain that and why it's really valuable for dealers?
Yeah, so you think about really what's happened in the last 10 years about all of these additional lifts being put on your salesperson or your dealership. And some manufacturers have even asked dealers to do redeliveries or have delivery coordinators. But there's a lot of additional things that we're asking our staff to do. Present accessories, set the first service appointment. Make sure you tell them about our seal coat. Make sure that they get their app set up on their new vehicle. I mean, all of these loose ends. And really what it boiled down to is the customer sitting there waiting for somebody to help guide them. And they want to help in the process. They're used to helping out in retail processes, but they don't really have a functional tool that can help make that happen. And so that's why we created the PDS. Of course, I saw this company coming in my own dealerships, and that was really where it was one of those things that there's got to be a better way to serve the client. And if we keep the client in mind, the rest will take care of itself. And so we needed a digital workflow that helped us do that. And that's why we created the PDS lane, and that's why we created ZipDeal.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I can imagine that the dealers that are using it now see that value almost immediately, because it's a problem that existed for a long time without a solution. Unfortunately, in our industry, there's a lot of solutions looking for problems. So I love the fact that you guys went about it the right way. So let's dig in a little bit. In what ways can a pre-delivery system or a PDS help dealerships maximize the revenue opportunities that are really out there across multiple departments?
So the car business has started to become more and more of a fragment business, right? You've got to pick up all of these fragment channels of income, or you're really going to be left in the dust. And so obviously we all know the value of that unit in operation. That's part of the reason why we maybe took that loser car deal, knowing that, well, we'll at least get a service customer out of this. But if your salesperson doesn't set that first service appointment, statistically speaking, you're never going to see that customer again. And so when you have all of these different major channels like service and parts that are tied to a car deal, but then you have all of these ancillaries such as accessory sales, auto insurance sales. Maybe it's you want to really boost something specific in your F&I product cadence, such as paint and fab, or there's a new lease wear care product that you're really trying to promote. If you are relying on your sales staff to make this happen, they often can be the gatekeeper to making that successful or not. And to be fair to all of our sales professionals that are out there, there's a lot getting thrown at them to be able to handle. And so their bandwidth of being able to do a proper presentation on all of these different products and maintain good CSI almost becomes impossible. And so when you digitize portions of this, it allows your customer and you as a dealer to have a seat at the table with every single car buying client, so that they are now being exposed to those specific things that you want them exposed to, and not necessarily those that we as an organization have a bandwidth to expose them to. So you've essentially expanded that bandwidth. And the customers are so receptive to this because you think about most retail transactions nowadays have some type of customer engagement along with that. And we're basically just piggybacking what's happening in our culture here in America to where we can allow our customers to become a part of the retail transaction and expose them to these additional fragment opportunities that we as dealers need to sustain our businesses.
Yeah, I just love the concept as a consumer and a person who's bought a lot of vehicles. Just hearing you articulate all the points of value from the dealer side of the business makes so much sense. Then the next couple questions that I want to ask you actually speak to that customer journey and kind of the functionality and action. Um, Customer experience is something that we talk about all the time now in automotive retail. So I was hoping maybe you could give me a little bit of a walkthrough. Like, how does the process work for the customer once they're in ZipDeal?
Mhm.
What do they see? What do they do?
Yeah, so you got to remember the customer has just agreed to buy the car, and now we're in that transitional time where the customer's waiting to go into the finance office. And so it's a very simple digital workflow that either re-verifies some information. How do you want it titled? Um, there's the F&I cadence of survey questions such as, is the car going to be parked inside or outside? How many drivers are going to be the vehicle? We collect the insurance information if you want to upsell and get into the auto insurance. But it's a very systematic cadence that we believe that you give, and then ask for some information. So we want to talk about the fun stuff, personalizing the vehicle, either through the setups of the vehicle or through accessories. And then we might ask them for something like, hey, here's a video we want you to watch. Now, we don't obviously say that, but we will expose them to the video that is something at very low funnel car buyers would have interest in. The beautiful thing about ZipDeal is that if you're a used car buyer, you're going to see a different workflow than you would if you're leasing a new car, or if you're financing a new car, or if you're financing a new truck. The system knows based off of what vehicle you're purchasing and how you're purchasing it to show you different channels of workflows of things that you would be interested in. But it's just a seamless process that makes sense. It's very similar to a lot of other retail transactions. And it usually takes about 10 to 15 minutes to go through. They're short 30 to 45-second videos, lots of relevant questions and information to their vehicle. An example of that would be we will go ahead and show the customer either a short 45-second video on what that OEM app does for the vehicle. And then we ask the customer, would you be interested in downloading the vehicle or downloading the app here today? And the reason we do it like that is because we want the customer to understand what the app actually is. And then we want to ask them if they want to take the time for us to set it up. And now, instead of us just kind of telling the customer, well, we need you to download this app, well, because the manufacturer wants us to do it. Hey, if they ask you, give us all 5 stars, we actually are exposing them to what the app actually does. And then we ask them if they would like us to help them download it, set it up. And of course, most customers say yes. And now when they're in the actual delivery of the vehicle, they've already told us that they want us to take the time to set that up for them. So they're willing to take the time for us to set that up for them. Instead of them telling us, hey, I got to get out of here. Now they've already opted to have us do this for them. So it really streamlines just all of these loose ends, and the customer sees that in the cadence of the workflow that they go through, so that they see value in the actual physical delivery of the vehicle, and it's not just something that starts to become manipulated from survey questions, or we're backed up against the wall because of time or whatever. So
Yeah, I really like that. There's been so much. I mean, since going back to COVID, dealers have been told that digital retailing tools were these almost miraculous customer experience type tools. We found out that they were probably a little bit more like somewhat fancier lead generation tools. ZipDeal is something that, as a consumer, I don't think it takes about a minute or two to understand how it's really an effective piece of a very important part of the transaction that matters to the consumer. Like, it gives the dealership something in hand to make sure that that person driving away in their new or new to them vehicle, that's one of the happiest moments that they experience, right? And so I wanted to ask you a little bit about, I know that you guys introduced a referral module in ZipDeal. Can you speak a little bit to that? You mentioned a little bit, like instead of just being forced, like, hey, I
Yeah.
want 5 stars. There's a lot of things that can feel manipulative. It feels like you guys are building feature after feature in to make sure that you're getting a response that is helping the customer have a better experience all the way around. Can you speak
Yeah.
to that a little
One
bit?
quick comment, Sean, on your
Yeah.
digital retail. We see ZipDeal as a stepping stone to full digital retail. The
Mm,
problem with digital retail is that it's just too much for a customer to go through, right? There are way too many loose ends: credit, trade in, finance rates, payments, budget, money down. I mean, there is a litany of stuff. And you're right. It is a glorified, highly qualified lead generator. But to actually transact a car completely digital is very difficult to do. And dealers knew that. Yet there are digital components that help us leverage our sales process through the dealership. That's what ZipDeal does. There are very important qualitative things that need to be addressed. And in order for us to scale and to address those, they've got to be done in a digital format. That's why we see ZipDeal as a stepping stone to full digital retail. To
mm.
answer your question, um, so what was your question?
Oh, I wanted to ask you about this referral
Oh
module
yeah,
that's been
referral
built into
module.
list of
Referral
built in.
module is it really is just a simple thing as you have not because you ask not. And again, dealers know how important referrals are. General managers know how important referrals are. General sales managers know how important referrals are. To ask a customer for a referral is very difficult to do, and it can be very uncomfortable for a lot of sales professionals. We let the system do that work for us. Have you had a great experience today? By the way, if you want to share any referrals of people that you might be interested in buying a car, we're happy to take those and give them the same great experience that you've gotten today. You know, does everybody just roll over and give you a bunch of referrals? No, but when you're selling 3 or 4 or 500 cars in a month, you'll get a small percentage of people that will say, yeah, my sister's interested in buying a car and she wants the same one just like I got, and here's her name and number. I mean, there is a fair amount of that out there. I mean, there's other tools and modules that are much more powerful than the referral module. The first service appointment, setting that first service appointment, I mean, is huge. Employment referral. Would you or someone be interested in getting a job here? That to me is one of the most powerful modules that we have, because people are literally handing you $30, $40, $50,000, and they're saying, wow, I could see myself working at a place like this. Yeah. This seems like a great place. Let me go ahead and have somebody from HR reach out to me. And the beauty in that is not only does somebody in HR get notified, but the system's so sophisticated that if this person happens to be a technician or somebody that's in a higher profile position that the dealership desperately needs, we can alert those appropriate managers to say, hey, there is a technician sitting in the showroom buying a car from you that's interested in potentially coming to work at your dealership. You might want to go out and say hi to them as a general manager or as a service manager. So, yeah, I mean, when we have the focus of the customer, and the customer is there and they're receptive to what we're communicating to them, now all we have to do is ask the customer to participate along with us. And what we find is that buy-in is quickly there. And you could not have done this 10 years ago. You could not have done this 15 years ago. It's in the last 7+ years, a little bit pre-COVID, certainly through COVID, but then post-COVID, where customers are much more receptive to co-interacting with your business to some digital degree. And all we're doing is leveraging that inside this sales process.
Yeah, it seems like it's the more natural places where the consumers actually want to connect and collaborate with the dealership as
For
well,
sure.
versus technology providers that oftentimes are always trying to push things onto dealers, like I was mentioned before. It's like, they're looking for a problem for this solution that they built, and it always oftentimes feels pretty unnatural. And you just covered a bunch of things that I think are really critical. I mean, what if you have a technician there that's being exposed and having this experience, and you have a touch point? I might want to work there. There's also so many other areas of the operation of the dealership that you're presenting improvement to, or even protection of, like, defection rates of people having a bad service experience or a good service experience. The opportunity for you to connect with people and have that insight live, like the on-demand factor, it's huge. So I want to move a little bit in our conversation to just the practical integration of how the apps and service and automation and all these things kind of work. So first thing I want to ask you in that area is, how does a pre-delivery system like ZipDeal assist dealers in driving manufacturer app downloads among their customers?
Yeah, so it's like I said earlier, right? You have a low funnel customer. They're at the bottom of the funnel. They're getting ready to sign on the dotted line to own that. So when you have these ancillary things that are out there, one of them's the app. I think that dealers that don't see the value in the app, or sales managers that don't see the value in the app, are really doing a disservice to the ownership of their dealership, but also to the ownership for the customer. And the reason I'm so passionate about that particular subject is we all know how powerful digital information is. When you look at what the OEMs have done to build out the networks of 4G connectivity inside that vehicle, the hardware that's in that vehicle, and then all of the data that's coming out of that vehicle, I think highlights, people understand, oh, the money's in the data, the money's in the data. And there is money in the data. But if you don't take that app that is in the customer's cell phone and connect it to that car, and you don't get that done at time of delivery, you basically have gotten to the 99-yard line and are going to fail every time and never score that touchdown. You have to get the app connected to the car, and you have to get the car connected to the dealership. And the only way you do that is by downloading that app at the time of delivery. Now that the customer's app and cell phone are married to the car and to the dealership, now they're in your digital ecosphere. And so if they're in your digital ecosphere, now you have the opportunity to have much more of a say in that customer's relationship with the vehicle in your dealership, because you have access to the data. And so ZipDeal does that in a very seamless way. When you think about how you do it without ZipDeal, it's very cumbersome, right? Customer, if you're sophisticated, the customer is going to scan a QR code and they're actually going to get to the app store. And then hopefully they remember what their password is, and hopefully they can do all this stuff before they're actually taking delivery of the vehicle. Usually it's a salesperson inside the car with the customer, where the Wi-Fi or the connectivity may not be the best, and they're trying to download the app. They don't remember what their password is. They got to call their daughter to get that. They downloaded maybe the wrong app. That's a fake one that looks like the OEM app. And then meanwhile, your salesperson's trying to play cell phone IT and network IT with somebody while they're sitting literally 2 feet next to them inside of a vehicle. It's bad. And it usually ends with, hey, just tell them you downloaded the app, because I lose my bonus if I don't get that. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that's happening.
Yeah.
Where ZipDeal is going to actually send the link to the customer, and then they download it, and then they can be figuring out what their app store password is and connectivity issues, all with them prior to them going into the finance office while they're waiting to get in. And then when they go out to the car to actually take delivery of the vehicle after they've signed paperwork, now they just pull up the app. The salesperson is connecting it to the car, and it's about a 30-second interaction instead of what could be 5, to 10 minutes of trying to do this. And now that the vehicle's connected, now they can show them how the app actually works to start the car, or to unlock the doors, or to locate that vehicle, instead of the litany of IT issues that really eliminate the connectivity in the first part. When I look at some of the OEM data of what the connectivity is with the OEM apps, I'm dumbfounded at how many of them are less than 50%. And I mean, you think about all your shopping experiences and all the apps that you have on your phone already. And here, one of the most expensive purchases that you'll make as a consumer, the app download percentage is oftentimes less than 50%. And I would say that the adoption rate is probably even less than that. And the reason is because the customer does not understand the value of this app that they've downloaded for their vehicle. And so to them, it's just another app on their phone. ZipDeal shows the customer what the value proposition of what the app is, asks them if they want it, they say yes, and then sets it up for them so that it's an actual viable, useful tool that digitally connects their vehicle to the dealership and to the OEM.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Let's talk about how you use the system to introduce customers to the service department, and maybe if there's some thoughts around it, if it's approving. I know it is, but it's relative improvement to CSI scores.
Yeah, so look, we've all sold that customer the car that doesn't need introduced to the service department, right? That's the big question. Introduction to service. And every manufacturer wants to know introduction to service. And that's because JD Power, whoever writes these scores, they all ask, were you introduced to service? Hey, make sure if they ask you were introduced to service, tell them you were introduced to service. I know it's your third car that you bought from us, but just make sure you tell them you were introduced to service. In this day and age, we can do an introduction to service if the dealer chooses digitally, where we can show them through video a consistent message of where the service garages are, what they do when they pull into the service department, and then all can be done in 30 to 45 seconds, to where now the customer has been reintroduced to service, but it's a 45-second introduction instead of, let me walk you on down there and have you sign into this notebook and all of that stuff. I mean, now granted, this is optional, right? For dealers that want to do that, then just keep doing it the same way. But if you're looking to leverage digital componentry like what ZipDeal offers, then let's check that box, make the introduction digitally, get a consistent message that's done the same message every single time. And oftentimes the customers see more value out of that because it's all streamlined and done in the same way, to where they can digest and remember that versus what a salesperson might randomly do. And the only check and balance we have is some kind of a book that they sign into, or trying to interrupt a service advisor while they're trying to help another customer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You can tell I spent a little bit of time in dealerships.
No, but I love that, because the context always is what matters the most. And if you especially, you and I have talked about ZipDeal before, and when you talk about technology and retail, you often have a conversation, or the talking head for whatever the product or service is not someone who has that experience that you speak of. They have an experience of trying to sell to somebody like you, and you understand it from actually having to solve the problems to actually improve the customer
experience. Well, they add
words
like AI to it, and then we're all supposed to think, oh, it must work.
Right. So all the buzzwords and trends that get thrown into automotive retail oftentimes muddy the water more so than they present themselves as obvious solutions that really fix real world problems inside of dealerships. It is unfortunately rare that products, technology like ZipDeal come out of the retail side. It needs to happen more. It used to be that's the way a lot of businesses, evolved new tech and new solutions to problems. It's because the people who were experiencing them. So don't ever apologize for that. The context that you bring, I think, is actually one of the most valuable things for dealers when they listen to you talk about this. It's because you actually are a real world practitioner and you were
The
doing all of
reason,
these things long before you came up with the idea that maybe you could do something that wouldn't just help yourself, but you'd want to share it with other dealers
for
who
sure,
have the same problems.
the reason that it's so difficult to buy a car is because the technologists and the legacy providers have created something that is just cumbersome to work through.
Hmm.
And so when you have these legacy companies and these technology companies that don't really understand the art of buying and selling a car, because there is an art to it. There's a science, but there's an art. And they've controlled the narrative for so long. And just flip through automotive news. I mean, they're speaking to dealers. They say all the right things. I mean, the advertisements are great. I love them
Yeah.
because they say all the right things, but they
Yeah.
don't deliver on those things because they can't. And the
Yeah.
reason they can't is because the processes are so ingrained and so cumbersome. And so I think you're going to see dealers like myself that have a process mind, that understand digital relationship, and then have development teams that can actually digitize these types of processes. I think you're going to see more and more of these products coming out of dealerships like ourselves because we are tired of reading the ads that don't amount to truth. We're tired of the narrative being controlled by people that don't really understand our business, yet they understand it enough to write ads that tell us how they understand the business. But when it comes to actually delivering on what they promise, dealers are just left hung out to dry over and over and over and again. And you really need more dealers like myself that are willing to step up and develop things that add real value to the client, to the car buying client. We take care of the car buying client, the rest falls in place.
Mhm.
And as you see more and more of these things that are coming at us from the OEMs, many of them are good things. Uh, we've got to have the bandwidth and the processes to be able to adapt and serve our car buying clients. And that's really where this PDS lane came out of that we created through ZipDeal.
Yeah, I think it's brilliant, and I say this a lot when I'm talking to people. Experience is the greatest differentiator. You can talk all you want. You can have all the awesome ads. You can have the most high-paid marketing team out there. You can have an amazing sales force who's really good at coercing, manipulating, controlling. That's all great. But when it comes to the automotive industry, it's been the same thing for a long time. Selection and price still sells, but also relationship. People love it when they have a great relationship at the dealership. They
Yeah,
love it when the very
for
last
sure.
moment is they literally hands on the wheel or driving away from the dealership, and it's one of the happiest days of their life, even if they've done it two or three or four or 10 times.
Yeah.
That's and not capitalizing on that is really failure at the dealership end. And Zip Deal is one of those things, and there aren't a lot of those things in the marketplace right now that literally help make that experience go as smoothly as it possibly can. And I love that you actually talk about those things and you're not afraid to talk about the things that the tech that's been an avalanche on top of avalanche on top of avalanche really since the dawn of internet for
Mhm.
automotive retail. Many of those things have buried and made things more cumbersome and difficult for dealerships. And then we talk about things, and this the last few questions I have for you start to get on a little bit onto reputation management. We used to never talk about that. It used to be a word of mouth thing. There wasn't actually technology involved. We didn't have to worry about the consumers now have an open marketplace relative to reputation to talk about. But in all honesty, there are tech providers that have put more of those avalanches and these cumbersome activities that are not actually helpful to dealers, have made things more difficult for them, have made it more difficult for dealers to actually maintain a good reputation because there's so many moving pieces. A salesperson isn't just selling a vehicle and walking around and doing feature benefit. They're also, are you better at writing skills? How awesome are you on the phone? There's just a lot of things that have, instead of complemented the operation within the dealerships, we've complicated it with a lot of technology. It's why I think makes ZipDeal so refreshing. So reputation management, if you wouldn't mind, let's talk a little bit about that. Online reviews, it is very important for dealers. How does ZipDeal support that for dealers in terms of collecting, managing customer feedback, things like that effectively?
Yeah, so I mean, you can imagine it's pretty simple, right? We have the customer information and we solicit them for a review. That's not much different than what you might see through some of these other reputation management systems. Here's what's very different about ZipDeal, and this just illustrates how powerful of a system and a tool this is. So, again, a lot of retail interactions that you have will even poll you on the credit card machine. You know, they might say, "Hey, was this today a good experience, or not?" Or they might even have 5 stars. And this is just on a credit card machine. You'll see this kind of stuff, point of sale type stuff. Module. Hey, Sean, you just bought a new Honda or something. How was your experience today? 1 through 5. And then we give you an opportunity to leave comments. What's beautiful about what we do is if you leave us anything less than a 5, the general manager, the dealer, the sales manager are all alerted in real time via text that says, Sean just gave you a 3 and said that the test drive route was down a back alley or whatever, just some feedback. And you know what? What's beautiful about that is we can address that concern in real time. Not after he went home and posted online about how terrible his service was or how nobody seemed to pay attention to him or care. We have an opportunity to have the general manager go out, introduce himself and say, Sean, I believe that we haven't lived up to a 5-star experience here, and I want to apologize for that. And I want to value your feedback. Here's my business card. Here's my cell phone. If you have any other further issues, please, I want you to give me a call personally because I want to make sure that you get the most out of this vehicle and the relationship that you've had here today. I mean, talk about wowing your customers. What bothers people the most is when they take the time to share something and then nobody does anything about it. Mm-hmm. And this is why having a response to online reviews is so important, right? But I mean, how many canned responses can we give the market after a while between, oh, I'm glad you had a great experience. Thanks again. Enjoy your new car. I mean, how many different times can you say that?
Yeah.
But if I can handle that in real time and I can deal with it, now haven't we really solved what the real issue is instead of trying to get some SEM score up or whatever it is that you're trying to manipulate? We're dealing with the heart of the matter. And when you deal with the heart and the core of the matter, everything else starts to take care of itself. It's as simple as that. But if we don't do it in the right time and relevant timing, then sometimes it's just too late. It's just too late. And after 2 or 3 days have gone by, and then the customer leaves a nasty review, and then you're going to respond to it on as a response there. Yeah, you can try to reach out to the customer, but I would argue that in a lot of ways, it's just too late. You had the customer there. You needed to deal with it there. If you had known, you would have dealt with it much differently. So I think the timing of what we do and really getting the voice of that customer in real time, and then the way that we alert the relevant staff members is just key. And it just shows how powerful this system really is.
Yeah, that's huge because it allows you to elevate true authenticity versus feeling like you have to manufacture it, right? That's kind of what you're saying is when you're manufacturing this, we're authentic. It's now you're not. But what you're describing, it's absolutely authenticity and it's elevated. And you want to talk about providing great customer experience or, service that matters to people. So you
read any good Net Promoter Score book, they will tell you never incentivize for a score. Never incentivize your staff to get a score. And the reason is because they know and understand that you're not going to get relevant, accurate data when it's been incentivized. And if you really value manufacturers, if you really value NPS, then you should want a real number, not something for your marketing team to advertise.
Right.
It goes to the authenticity of what we're talking about here. I want to know if my customers are having a good experience or not. I am not trying to check a box to brag about my buddies about my NPS score. As a matter of fact, I would rather know the truth and be able to deal with the truth than have some manipulated score. And I think that's one of those false narratives that's haunting our business. Is that when you look at quality index scores and customer satisfaction scores and everything else, I mean, there's sometimes I just scratch my head and I think, man, I don't know how they got there, because I'm in the real world and I see it first and foremost. And really, for me, I would rather know what the real number is so that I can address a real number instead of trying to check a box.
Yeah. And what's the point of gaming the system when the customer is still actually not happy, that they weren't really taken care of? And what you're saying is, no, I want the candor. I want to know. I want the safety nets all around every department, our whole operation, so that something isn't right, we make it right. We'd rather have word of mouth people not captured in any OEM or any other system. We'd rather have the word of mouth all around town and all around the country telling people how hard we work to make sure their experience was great. That's a big difference. And
absolutely,
yeah, it's refreshing to hear. Just a couple last things I want to ask. One is, are there, or maybe which modules within ZipDeal have been kind of proving to be maybe the most widely adopted, maybe, or the ones that you feel are most valuable to dealers? Are any of those time sensitive? Like right now, are there things that are maybe more popular than others, or just in general, are there things that are kind of the most adopted, most valuable?
I think most valuable to me is trade verification questions. Do you have the title to your trade? Is it in your name? Are there multiple owners on this trade? Have you had any name changes since you bought the car? I mean, simple things like that kind of checks and balances that sometimes dealers forget. Not always the hottest and the sexiest, but it's definitely very valuable to the organization, because you can hold up a $10,000 trade just because somebody's ex-boyfriend won't sign off on this title, and now you've already resold it, and just relevant, accountable information that you have. Accessory sales, you can quickly move the number on accessory sales because you're exposing customers to additional accessories that they may or may not have thought through. Obviously, online reviews, capturing those online reviews, the value, the voice of the customer is key. We match that up with a marketing survey that sometimes asks customers insightful marketing questions that provide you as a dealer and your marketing team very relevant information. What streaming services are they subscribing to? We already know what radio stations they're listening to based off the vehicle personalization. What best describes this dealership to you? I mean, a lot of qualitative stuff that you wouldn't normally get. We can not just have a sample size of a small percentage of our customers, but we can have a sample size of every customer based off of a certain marketing strategy that we took over a 3-month period. I mean, so I would say that the data that we can generate to that dealership is profound. Obviously, employee referrals. I mean, there's a litany. If you're in the insurance business, we have a whole workflow of insurance modules that help them sell more auto insurance inside the dealership. F&I surveys, making sure that the F&I survey, the pre-questionnaire, can be done prior to them going to the finance office. I mean, just about anything that you want to pull a customer on, we do. We have actually about 50 modules. Most dealerships choose between 8 and 10 as they're getting started, but there's definitely a few that I just named that I think are kind of like, you should make these mandatory.
Yeah, I think there's several in there that are extremely valuable and also tied to, increasing profitability at the store. You and I have talked about this a little bit previously. Accessories is so huge. I I think I shared this previous story with you on the particular truck that I have, that the dealership, if they would have had a zip deal, they would have made thousands of
Yeah.
additional dollars in the tires, the wheels, the lift kit that I put on my truck. It's not a crazy one, even though I live in Texas. It's reasonable. It's perfect.
Just tell
But
me it's 4-wheel drive, please.
it is four-wheel
Okay.
drive, yes. Yeah. Not that I don't love Honda. Honda's great, and I'll tell you one day about the 1983 Honda Accord Special Edition that my parents, the first Honda that my parents bought in the little town I
Oh
grew up
yeah,
with.
SCI.
And they, I learned to drive in that car. But that particular car went over 300,000 miles, carbureted, like it was such a
Yeah.
cool little car. They had it forever. But my truck, if the Toyota dealership where I bought my Tundra would have had this app, they would have made thousands of dollars, and they would have made it just again, because it's been, I don't know, 3 years since I did all that stuff. And the company that makes my lift kit, the ball joints are built into the front control arms. You cannot replace the ball joints by themselves, and the ball joints boots are cracked, and I'm about to go on a long trip, so I'm like, got to get some done, so I needed new tires. So I just spent thousands of dollars again on a brand new set of tires,
Mm-hmm.
and
At an
replacing the right
aftermarket shop.
suspension parts. Yep. And it
Yeah.
all went away from the dealer. And
Yeah.
so you are presenting all these points of value for ZipDeal to keep that, but also to elevate these areas, and it's one after another after another. Last thing I just want to ask you, and I'll give you the rest of your day back, is when you're talking to dealers, when you're talking to people in the industry, and there's kind of a key insight or a message that you really like the dealer side of automotive to take away from conversations like this, what is that usually? What's the main thing? Like, if you were talking to yourself and
Yeah.
ZipDeal was kind of being presented to you, what would you want to be impressed upon you?
How do we better serve the client, right? Vehicles, we've all heard that customer own a vehicle for 3 years and then say, yeah, I didn't even know it had that. That's a real shame, because customers owned a vehicle, they didn't even know it had a certain feature to it. And I have to look at myself as a dealer and say, man, where do we fail? Because the customer's been paying for that feature, yet they didn't realize that they had access to it. I think that is really what ZipDeal aims to curb, as we all know why that happens. It's a lot of it just boils down to the bandwidth our staff has. There's a lot of moving parts that your salespeople have to go through to get a car deal put together. And I would even argue that to some degree, we've become better at the psychology of a car deal than the actual function and features and product of a car deal, the car. And I think that's happened because customers are able to do so much research on their own to find out about that vehicle, that you often know as a consumer more about that vehicle than the guy that's actually selling it to you. And that's a shame, right?
Yeah.
But when it comes to a dealership, we need to be able to serve the client and do that systematically. And what I love so much about ZipDeal is it allows me as a dealer to have a seat at the table with every single car buyer. I know that my customers have had a warm welcome introduction to our dealership, that they've downloaded the relevant information that's going to help them get the most out of this vehicle, that they've solidified a relationship with the dealership as they've set up their first service appointment, and that they've been presented with all of the aspects that I feel are relevant to that car buyer's purchase at each and every engagement. And that's what I love about it, is that I have a say systematically, and I can scale that with each individual customer to where they are going to get the most out of the vehicle and the most out of the relationship with the dealership. And the money follows. It's really not about the money. It's about the relationship. And when you come to the customer to serve them and help them get the most of things, then the rest falls in place. And that's what I love about ZipDeal, and that's what I love about leveraging myself as a dealer through the ZipDeal system.
Yeah. I really appreciate you sharing again, Steve. Unbelievable insights. I think really the strong points of value that dealers need to understand about ZipDeal. You're so good at articulating the points of value and the message, as you probably should be, because it was something that you were trying to solve on your own. And I know for a fact that dealers who are really trying to solve all those same issues, that they want value, but they think about profitability, ZipDeal does so many things to help you with the things that you can do that are profitability based. But you just said something, and I'll end it here. When you're doing all these things to provide great customer experiences, when you're doing, intro to service, all these different things that we've kind of covered, making somebody love the experience they've had and having something like ZipDeal that really makes sure that it was all great, they drive away happy. Well, guess what? That means that you're also protecting those defection rates, right? We don't need people defecting from brand. We don't need defecting from your service department and so on. And it's one of those things that almost seems like the easiest no-brainer for dealers to say, yeah, why wouldn't I start here? So I would just once again say thanks for spending the time to you just step through these points of value. I know that dealers will find this information helpful. So thanks for taking the time.
Glad to do it, Sean. Thank you so much.